Welcome back to Spotlight on Seniors. Our special guests today are Dr. Bill Rand and what happened to Debbie Rand? This handsome, good-looking guy is David Rand. And you're going to be an ophthalmologist as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. So we substituted you for your mom. Is that okay?
I think so. I can't guarantee I'll be as good as she was, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, she's really good, and so is Dad. Well, we're going to talk to David for a few minutes. David, what was it like growing up in a household with a doctor who was committed and to his practice, and your mom, who definitely is a brilliant woman and very, very ambitious for her children? What was it like for you? I know you have a sister too, right?
Right, exactly. My sister Allison.
Tell us about David.
Okay, sure. So I would say, as far as your first question, growing up in such a house, you know, sometimes children, even though maybe we can't express it as well, we sort of know what's going on. And I knew there was something very special going on, that my parents were doing something together. I couldn't quite put my finger on it when I was 2 or 3, of course, but I knew that they were doing something together that was very fulfilling and very meaningful. And so I remember going into the office when I was 3 years old, and I used to take a bowl of cookies and just go from patient to patient and just start passing out cookies, because my parents always used to love to give cookies to parents, you know. It's incredible. I realized just doing something for another person, especially in the setting, in the medical setting, I saw really how much it can do for others and the smile it can put on so many people's faces. And so I realized from that point that this is something I definitely want to be involved with. Did I know at the time it was going to be ophthalmology? Specifically, no, but I knew there was something there that I would have to replicate in my own life.
It wasn't going to be a professional baker, which is the thing people tell me I should become. Given a choice, that was a very good one for you to have.
Yeah.
And so you did go to the office at that point, and then your grandfather, your father's dad, was in the household with you and your sister Allison for a certain period, and he was an Alzheimer's victim. Do you recall very much of what it was like for you to be in the house with him? Because you were much younger then.
I was younger, but I was old enough to realize. Actually, I would say, looking back, this was one of those experiences that I think led me to medicine also. I think that it was, when I saw, it was literally 4 to 5 years that was around my grandfather. And I have to admit, I didn't really know him. I was too young to really know him before he started developing Alzheimer's. So the grandfather I knew was the grandfather, you know, that had Alzheimer's. And I remember during those years, the constant care that was given. And I realized that there's a much higher level of patient care that could be given beyond just a baseline. That there's always something more we can do. And really, I understood how much time and effort it took, which I think is superhuman and almost, I could say, is almost impossible to replicate. But I realized that it can be done, and as long as we focus our hearts and minds to the care objectively for our patients, that we can produce a much higher level of patient care.
And I remember having your mother on the program at one point and talking about this with your sister, and even your mother didn't realize the effect that this situation had on Debbie, and I had on not only Debbie and your dad, but on your sister as well. Bill, you didn't realize it at the time either?
We didn't realize the great opportunity that was there. We saw the responsibility, and we're very proud and very thankful that we lived up to the responsibility. He was with us for the rest of his life, for the 5 years, and the compassion that the kids saw rubbed off on them, and it made them much better people for it.
Well, they also had role models in the two of you, but David, I know that for years your mother and I would talk about the potential for the two of you becoming physicians. When did you finally decide that you not only wanted to be a doctor, but you also wanted to go into ophthalmology?
So I'll say that, as I said before, I knew that there was something in ophthalmology that I loved. I think it's, I would say in around middle school time, I realized that this was really the pathway for me. I started going to the office more often. I went into surgery with my father where the scrubs were too big and I had to roll them up to fit around my wrists. And I remember such wonderful memories, and I realized I saw in just a few minutes what could be done for somebody. And ophthalmology is a very personal field, and I think I can understand why my father chose to go into it as well. It's the only field where you're forced to literally look into the eyes of the patient when examining them, and there's an instant connection, there's a relationship there. And that vision, even though it may incorporate a very small part of the patient's body, has a tremendous functional difference based on whether they can see or not, obviously, and then the potential is just literally immeasurable to be able to help them and really change their entire lives.
And then you went to the University of Miami.
Yes.
And now you're finishing up where? What's in the immediate future for
Right, so
for
I just
you?
finished medical school, actually. So that actually
In
was
3 years, right?
In 4 years. So
4
actually,
years?
the entire process after high school through finishing medical school was 6 years for me. Because I knew so early on from my such wonderful experiences that I had that I wanted to go into medicine, I chose to enter into the accelerated program at the University of Miami, which is taking off 2 years of undergraduate instead of 4, and so then plus 4 years of medical school, that made 6 years.
And I would
just
have
finished.
to throw in that they don't allow just anybody to do that. You have to have very special qualification. Your sister did the same thing, wasn't
Right,
that
actually,
correct? So
exactly.
you had her, the inspiration from your parents, and following what she did, but it's not a case of someone saying, well, I'm going to do this in 6 years or 5 years or 7 years or whatever it is. And now you have to do what? Because they're waiting for you with open arms to come back to the practice.
I did, and so right now, actually, so I just finished general medical school. There are 4 more years to be able to specialize. 1 year in general medicine, and then 3 more years of ophthalmology, which I'll be doing in New York, actually, at SUNY Downstate. Interestingly enough, not only my sister went there, but my father trained actually with many of the faculty, and the fathers of the faculty now who are there, actually. So it's sort of funny how there seems to be this tradition.
Thank heavens his record there was good. Bill, how do you feel about that? You were happy that they both decided to go there?
I was ecstatic with that. It's a father's dream. But actually, I think what the kids are not telling you is that what they really liked is when I was in surgery, they thought I was playing Super Nintendo. When you operate, you know, the feet are working 10 different controls with each foot, and then you have what you do with your hands, and they love that.
No, I said I wasn't going to watch the surgery when I went there with my brother, and I watched it, and your father just makes it all so simplistic. Have you actually, when do you actually start operating on patients, David?
So actually in the 3rd and 4th year of medical school, we're assisting in much of general surgery and general medicine. And through that experience, I knew I loved it even more, and I just can't wait to actually do ocular surgery, eye
Are you
surgery.
going to push him out of the way so you can do the surgery?
Not at all. He's going to be the best teacher. I can't wait to,
Yes.
to literally learn from him, because I know he has a wealth of information that very few people have in the world. People always ask me, by the way, they say, am I following in his footsteps? And I always say, no, I'm following in his footprints. The reason why is because I see what he's done, and I see basically the effects that it can have on so many people. Literally 30 or 40,000 operations, and each one of them literally changed that person's life. So I know this is exactly what I'd like to do, and I can't wait to come back.
So you're following in his vision, actually.
Even better.
We'd have to change his profession. And what do you think you would like to accomplish? Are you seeing things already that you'd like to accomplish that have not yet occurred?
100%. Ophthalmology, as my mother said before, is a constantly evolving and changing field. Even in the few years, in order to get into the field of ophthalmology, because it's more competitive, you actually have to be involved with the research, which I've done overseas in Israel as well as here in America. And some of the projects, just from being exposed just for a few months, being involved in those research projects, I realized the potential and the creativity that's involved in constantly changing the field. And hopefully I'd like to learn from my father not only how to learn ophthalmology, but really learning how to learn ophthalmology and learning how to develop the field.
And the thing he does best of everything he does is how he makes the patients feel comfortable. And I sense that same type of compassion in you, because it's like being on the program when people come on, they say they're nervous. The main thing I do is get everybody relaxed, and nobody ever knows what I'm going to ask, including myself, or the enthusiasm that you're going to get from the people who are your guests. I sense in your father right now that he's so proud of what you're saying. What do you envision for David in the future? Are you going to stay right there beside him, or are you going to become an observer, or kind of Allison pushing you out of the way, or is it going to be 3 of you doing surgery at the same time?
No, I have as most ophthalmologists in very busy practices, I think I have about another 15 years where I could be at my peak. And there's more than enough for all of us to do. And I would envision that we'll bring them step by step to be the best they can be.
So in 15 years, it could be one of David's children that's passing cookies out in the waiting room. That's a good way to get you in the waiting room, David. And we're not going to ask you how many of the cookies you ate in the process.
Oh, that's it.
And you're looking forward to coming down back to Florida to practice and actually be with your dad and with Allison, right?
Exactly. That's what I would love to do. And hopefully in 4 years I'll be back.
Is there any piece of the practice, I mean, any piece of ophthalmology that you'd like to specialize in?
So what's interesting, what I've been exposed to the most is seeing what my father does, which is, although my father in a few years back, fellowships weren't as specialized, so he was basically doing everything.
Right.
And so really could do any type of surgery. But most of the practice now is what we call anterior segment, more in the front of the eye, like a lot of the corneal surgery, cataracts. And I see how there's much to be done as far as research and constant change of technique in surgery in anterior segment, what I've seen basically my whole life. And so hopefully I'd love to continue in that direction and to be able to...
Let's just talk for a minute about that wonderful woman who's known as your mother. And what kind of an inspiration has Debbie Rand been to your life?
So, I mean, oh my gosh, where do I start? I don't know what to say almost. We always joke around, let's put it this way, and I'll say why we joke around in a second. We joke around that we all get an allowance, but my mother really runs the practice. And the reason why we say that is because my mother has just been everywhere. Wherever you go, if you go up the stairs from the second to the third floor in the building, she was just on the second floor, and now she's on the third floor, and when you go down the stairs again, she's back on the second floor. She's constantly doing for others. She's constantly making sure that I would say so many other, not only medical issues for the patient are being taken care of, just to see that they're comfortable, to see if they want something to drink. I think that's the other side of medicine that I think is crucial and essential to being a physician. And so not only have I learned the medical part from my father, but I've learned the other side of medicine that's just as important to be able to really take care of the entire person. You're not just taking care of an eye, of a patient, you're taking care of a person who might be a little anxious at the time, who really might need just someone to sit down next to them and speak with them. And so I think from that perspective, to see sort of both the medical and the non-medical, really inspiration for me it was to be able to really see both and know that's exactly what I'd like to do.
So it's a good combination, not
Exactly.
only as a couple, but as parents. And so you plan to come back and stay in Florida for your practice and to be with the family, which is an ideal, it's an ideal situation. If you read about this in a book, you'd say, hey now, this can't possibly be. So, and I can never see you retiring, Bill. Never. You'll always be in there. I don't think you'll be passing the cookies around, but I can never see you not practicing in one way or another. So if you had some final thoughts you'd like to share with our audience about what you'd like to see occurring in ophthalmology in the near future, what would be your ideal?
Well, what my ideal would be that things will get better and better. And the best I always feel is yet to come. We'll have wonderful technology and the like. My only concern is with healthcare reform coming, that they don't just put a limit on what can go into the system.
And that's a big fear that I would have as well. Do you feel the same way, David? I mean, you can do so much, you have the skills to do it, and financially it becomes an impossibility because the dollars aren't there. Do you have fear about that, David? How are we going to resolve it?
Oh boy. I'll ask my father.
That's it. I want you to know how happy I've been to have both of you as our guests today, and your mother, Debbie. We can't have four people up here at the same time. I can't say you magically transformed into, your mother magically transformed into being you, David, but certainly a lot of your mother is in you, and it's very evident. And you, Bill, you've been a delight as well. So as the spotlight dims on today's session of Spotlight on Seniors, we want to thank our three special guests, Dr. Bill Rand, Dr. David Rand, and Debbie Rand, who is the glue that holds the whole family together, for being our guests. And reminder our viewers that aging is the most priceless gift presented to each of us by God, is wrapped in life's most precious moments and perpetuated by sharing, caring, dedication, and love.